Time now is 7:47. City of Oakland continues to deal with the repercussions of a ransomware attack for the past nearly 2 weeks now. Cyber criminals have been holding the city's data hostage and demanding money from the city in exchange for unlocking that data. To explain more about the attack and when the city will be able to recover, we say good morning to Dante Orsini. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of 1111 Systems. And we say good morning. Good to have you with us, Dante.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. Well, this all started February the 8th, still causing lots of issues for Oakland. How long does it take to recover from something like this?
Well, unfortunately, without knowing the extent of the attack, it's very hard to speculate. I will say that, if you look at the average recovery from a ransomware event, it's typically 16 days. But again, the complexity can really dictate the time frame. And clearly, the city is going to be working with, both state and federal authorities as well as forensic folks to dig through, the actual attack and understand exactly what happened, and then bring these systems back online in the best known state they can, which unfortunately takes time.
Yeah, and if cyber criminals see it works once, would they do it again to Oakland?
Well, I will say that this is a lot more rampant than you might expect. A lot of these organizations are constantly probing every possible system they can. Unfortunately, a lot of local governments typically lack the funding to have the proper controls in place. Don't know if that's the case with Oakland, but clearly, the post-incident analysis that's going to happen as a result of this attack, it's pretty clear. I'm sure the city's going to work very closely, with either managed security services providers to help them, harden the infrastructure, as well as there's a big aspect of this is training nonstop, because I will say that the organizations that are on the bad actor side are getting extremely good at this. And, the city's going to have to work very closely with their personnel to really train them as best they can to help spot these things in the future.
I was going to say there's really no quick fix then, right? Because someone could come around with something completely different.
Correct. And, just looking at the city's website, I think they've done a pretty decent job. I realize a lot of folks are frustrated by the lack of information about the attack, but clearly it's heads down to try to recover the infrastructure in the best known way they can. And, based on the details they have provided, it's not every single system associated with the city, right? So I'm sure they're taking their time to make sure that they bring these up in the best known state they possibly can. But to your point, there's nothing preventing this from happening again, other than a multi-layered security, approach to cyber resiliency. And I think, a lot of us focus on the actual pre-event side of this. What can we do to prevent these types of attacks? But what we're seeing in the industry is a lot of folks are really having to take a step back and also understand what happens post-event and test for that up front.
How expensive can it be for not to pay the ransom, but to fix it and then put all those layers of security back in?
It's hard to speculate. You really have to look at a multi-layered solution here, where you're looking at what's happening from a network perspective, an application perspective. How are you protecting the data? And at the same time, how do you recover, right? What we're seeing is there's been a lot of advancements in the backup space, to be able to actually store backups in such a fashion that we call this immutability, where once you write the data, you can't change it, right? So if you do that and you do it for a long period of time, obviously the data costs go up, but over time, what we've seen is that those costs have come down dramatically to be able to store data. In cases like this, even if you were to pay a ransom, there's no guarantee that the data is going to be recoverable when they provide the keys, right?
And are the cyber criminals, are these people ever caught? They're probably in another country somewhere?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think, unfortunately, we've even seen things like ransomware as a service happen, right? Where this has become, a very large industry for a lot of folks. And like I said, they're constantly probing every system they can get their hands on globally. It's not something that's, completely targeted towards just the city.
And Dante, you said off the top, this is not unusual. The city of Oakland's going through it, but this happens daily to businesses, does it not? Correct.
And in this case, obviously it's very public, but I think the last thing people want is to be able to go into the details about what's happening. I will say that, there's task force that are brought in post-incident. These are digital forensics firms, that work on the incident response. And it's a painstaking process because you're trying to understand when the city systems were compromised, what systems were compromised, what data is at risk, and how do you quickly quarantine that, take it offline, and start the painless, the painful process of digging through all the metadata to figure out what the best known, opportunities to bring those systems back online.
I know my sister worked at a company. They were hit. They fixed it, and then they got hit again like a month later. So it is really something. Well, we wish the city of Oakland well. And Dante, I want to thank you so much for all your insight to kind of put this in layman's terms. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, you too.